Ibrahim Traoré has been walking a tightrope ever since he took charge of Burkina Faso. Assassination attempts, secret plots, and backroom betrayals have been constant threats looming over his leadership. At the same time, he's been waging a tough battle against insurgents, determined to bring stability to the country. But his fight isn't just against armed rebels. There are hidden enemies within his own borders. For months, Traoré has been on a mission to uncover spies and informants, operatives working in the shadows, backed by powerful Western nations trying to shake up Burkina Faso's government and remove him from power. But here's the problem. These traitors don't wear uniforms or carry weapons. They operate quietly, blending into society, making them incredibly hard to track. That's where Traoré's brilliance comes in. Instead of chasing ghosts, he followed the money. He assembled a team of financial experts to dig deep into the bank records of former government officials. What they found was shocking. Certain individuals, some of them once powerful ministers and top-ranking generals, had been receiving massive deposits in their accounts. The amounts were too large to ignore, and the sources? Suspicious at best. The truth was finally out. Over 113 individuals had been secretly working against Burkina Faso's stability. Their network had been exposed, and now their bank accounts, completely frozen. But that's just the beginning. What happens next, and what does Traoré plan to do with those he's uncovered? Ibrahim Traoré has always put Burkina Faso first, often risking everything to keep the country safe. But recently, he's come to a critical realization. His survival isn't just about him. If he falls, so does the vision he's fighting for. History has already proven this. Thomas Sankara, the nation's revolutionary leader, was betrayed and assassinated by his own inner circle, with powerful foreign interests pulling the strings. Traoré refuses to let history repeat itself. That's why, on November 19, 2024, something major happened. Burkina Faso's Minister of Economy, Dr. Abubakar Nakanabo, made a bombshell announcement, an executive order that sent shockwaves through the country. The decree targeted individuals and organizations suspected of funding insurgents, the same groups responsible for relentless attacks and assassination attempts against Traoré. The ultimate goal? To create chaos, weaken the government, and pave the way for outside forces to seize control. Under Traoré's leadership, the military-backed administration moved swiftly. They froze the assets of 113 individuals and 2 organizations, cutting off their financial lifelines. But the real shock came when the names on that list were revealed. It was a betrayal eerily similar to what Sankara faced, trusted insiders secretly working with foreign powers. Among them was a particularly explosive name, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. Damiba had taken control of Burkina Faso in early 2022 after toppling the elected president, Roch-Marc Christian Kabore. But in September of that same year, Traoré ousted him, forcing him into exile in Togo. Now, even in exile, Damiba isn't just watching from the sidelines. According to the government, he's been actively involved in plots to destabilize Burkina Faso, including a recently exposed plan to assassinate Traoré. Authorities claim Damiba has been leaking sensitive information to foreign intelligence agencies and insurgent groups, all with the aim of undermining Traoré's government. With the evidence stacking up, Burkina Faso is now in talks with Togo, pushing for Damiba's extradition. But whether he will actually be handed over to face justice, that remains a burning question. The Burkinabe government's latest crackdown has sent shockwaves through the country. A sweeping decree has named several high-profile figures as key players in a shadowy network working to undermine Captain Ibrahim Traoré's leadership. These aren't just ordinary opposition members, they are former government officials, powerful military officers, and influential media figures accused of orchestrating a web of destabilization efforts. Among the most notable names on the list is General Djibril Bassolé, a seasoned political heavyweight who once served as Burkina Faso's foreign minister. His influence in both diplomatic and military circles has long made him a figure of interest, but now his alleged involvement in anti-government operations has put him in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Another name raising eyebrows is Alpha Barry, a journalist turned politician with deep connections in the media world. Authorities suspect his influence has been used to spread narratives that fuel division and unrest, subtly shaping public opinion against the current administration. Then there's Ahmed Kinder, a former Special Forces commander with a reputation for strategic military planning. He is now accused of using his expertise to orchestrate covert operations, aimed at weakening Traoré's hold on power. Alongside him are dismissed military officers like Yves Didier Bamuni and Romeo Owoa, who allegedly played direct roles in plotting against the government. But this crackdown isn't just about individuals. Two major insurgent groups have also been named in the executive order. These organizations have been at the center of Burkina Faso's security crisis for nearly a decade, responsible for a wave of deadly attacks that have claimed over 26,000 lives since 2015. Shockingly, more than half of those casualties, over 13,500, have occurred since Traoré took office in September 2022. Beyond the loss of life, the insurgency has created a staggering humanitarian crisis. More than 2 million people have been displaced, entire villages have been wiped off the map, and critical infrastructure has been left in ruins. Despite the devastation, these groups have continued to operate without restraint, largely due to the steady flow of funds from their backers. Traoré's government is determined to choke off these financial pipelines. By freezing the assets of 113 individuals and multiple organizations, authorities are cutting off the very lifeblood that keeps these destabilization efforts alive. Without financial support, these networks will struggle to function, making them far more vulnerable to the next phase of the government's plan: direct military action. Reports suggest that once these groups are financially crippled, Burkinabe special forces will be deployed in strategic covert operations to dismantle them completely. This move signals a shift from a defensive posture to an aggressive strategy aimed at taking down insurgent operations at their weakest points. At the same time, there's growing speculation about what will happen to the vast sums of money uncovered during these investigations. The frozen bank accounts of the accused individuals reportedly contain enormous amounts of wealth, funds that had been funneled in by foreign sponsors in exchange for loyalty. If redirected, this money could be used to strengthen Burkina Faso's military, providing long overdue resources for soldiers who have long been under-equipped. For years, the Burkinabe army has faced severe shortages. Soldiers lacked basic supplies, and civilians in conflict zones suffered from extreme poverty, some even resorting to eating leaves to survive. Traoré has been vocal in his criticism of the previous administration, blaming its failure to prioritize national defense for the country's deteriorating security. While leaders in the past turned a blind eye to the struggles of their people, his government is now taking bold steps to reverse that neglect. Beyond financial sanctions, the crackdown includes another major move: a travel ban on all 113 individuals named in the decree. This restriction prevents them from leaving the country while investigations continue, ensuring that they remain within reach of the law. Yet despite these decisive measures, significant challenges remain. One of the biggest questions is the fate of Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, the former leader accused of being the mastermind behind ongoing destabilization efforts. Burkina Faso is now in negotiations with Togo, seeking his extradition, but whether those talks will lead to his return remains uncertain. In African politics, powerful figures often evade justice, using influence and foreign connections to shield themselves from accountability. But Traoré's administration appears determined to break that pattern. This is more than just a political purge. It's a full-scale effort to dismantle deeply entrenched systems of corruption, espionage, and external manipulation. And at the heart of it all, one looming question remains. Will Ibrahim Traoré be able to neutralize the biggest threat to his leadership before it's too late? Burkina Faso has uncovered a web of betrayal so deep it reaches beyond its borders. According to National Security Minister Mahamadou Sana, what seemed like an isolated coup attempt was actually a carefully orchestrated plot involving military officers, former officials, and even civilians. But it doesn't stop there. Foreign intelligence services and powerful figures within the country's economic and political sectors were also allegedly involved. Intelligence reports suggest that the masterminds behind this scheme weren't just operating from within Burkina Faso. Some of them had been working from neighboring countries like Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Nigeria, coordinating their efforts from a safe distance. Their goal? To unseat Captain Ibrahim Traoré and dismantle his administration. At the center of it all is a name that many thought had faded from Burkina Faso's political scene: Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. The former military ruler, who was overthrown in 2022 and has been living in exile in Togo ever since, is now being accused of leading this elaborate operation. Once seen as having stepped aside quietly, he is now suspected of pulling the strings behind the scenes. Authorities believe Damiba didn't act alone. He allegedly built an alliance with former ministers, journalists, and ex-parliamentarians, using their connections to spread propaganda, manipulate public opinion, and secure financial backing from both local and international sources. But what makes this situation even more dangerous is the alleged partnership with violent insurgent groups. These militant organizations, notorious for their brutal attacks across the Sahel region, were reportedly roped into the plan, given intelligence and resources to carry out deadly missions. Their role was clear: escalate chaos, target civilians, and attack key government sites to create widespread panic. Authorities have revealed that the conspirators had mapped out several high-profile targets. Among them were the presidential palace, a critical drone base, Ouagadougou airport, and a military installation in Mango Dara. The plan was simple but devastating: strike hard, sow fear, and weaken confidence in Traoré's government. But the plot wasn't just about military action. Investigators uncovered a sophisticated media strategy designed to shape public perception. The plan was to manipulate the surge in insurgent violence as proof of Traoré's inability to govern, pushing a narrative that would justify calls for his removal. With enough fear and instability, conspirators believed they could turn the people against their leader and pave the way for a power shift. The sheer scale and ruthlessness of this operation revealed just how far some individuals are willing to go to reclaim power. It wasn't just about politics. It was about control, influence, and a willingness to sacrifice lives to achieve a hidden agenda. Recent arrests in Niger have provided even more insight into the extent of this conspiracy. During interrogations, detained individuals revealed shocking details about the coordination, funding, and long-term objectives of the plot. This wasn't a last-minute coup attempt. It was months in the making, with each move carefully planned to ensure maximum impact. In response, the Burkinabe government has launched an aggressive counter-operation determined to dismantle every remaining piece of the conspiracy. Authorities have urged citizens to remain vigilant, calling on families of those involved to step forward with information. But Traoré has made one thing clear: this isn't just about preventing a coup. It's part of a much larger effort to restore stability, dismantle corruption, and hold every conspirator accountable. If you are still watching this video, it means you love it. Why not take out a second and hit that like button? Have you done that? Let us move on. For months, whispers of foreign interference in Burkina Faso's security crisis have been dismissed as speculation. But now, a much darker picture is coming into focus. One that suggests a deliberate effort to destabilize the country from within and beyond its borders. Both Mali and Burkina Faso have accused France of fueling insurgencies in the region, but new intelligence points to an even more calculated plan. According to emerging reports, the strategy wasn't just about creating chaos, it was about replacing Captain Ibrahim Traoré with someone more favorable to foreign interests. The blueprint was simple but devastating. Insurgent groups would be emboldened, supplied with resources, and encouraged to ramp up their attacks. The goal? To push Burkina Faso to the brink, overwhelming its government and making Traoré appear incapable of restoring order. As the situation spiraled out of control, the Burkinabe people would be desperate for stability. And then, right on cue, a familiar face would return: Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. Damiba, the former military ruler who was overthrown in 2022, would be positioned as the country's savior, stepping in to rescue Burkina Faso from the very chaos his backers had engineered. With foreign support, he would assume power once more, while the same forces that fueled the insurgency would suddenly withdraw, making it seem as though only Damiba had the ability to restore peace. Traoré understands the gravity of this situation. He knows that if this plot is allowed to play out, Burkina Faso will remain locked in a vicious cycle, one where external powers handpick its leadership, and its people are left at the mercy of political games they never agreed to play. Traoré understands the gravity of this situation. He knows that if this plot is allowed to play out, Burkina Faso will remain locked in a vicious cycle, one where its leadership is handpicked by external powers, and its people are left at the mercy of political games they never agreed to play. To break this cycle, Traoré has set his sights on two critical objectives. First, he must deal with the insurgent threat head-on. His government is ramping up military operations, targeting the very groups that have been used as pawns in this geopolitical chess game. This isn't just about defeating armed factions, it's about protecting communities, reclaiming stability, and sending a clear message that Burkina Faso will not be controlled through fear. Second, Traoré knows that as long as Damiba remains free, the risk of another coup lingers. Extraditing him from Togo is not just about bringing him to justice, It's about cutting off a key player in this destabilization effort. If left unchecked, Damiba could continue working in the shadows, waiting for another opportunity to strike. Burkina Faso has seen this playbook before. In 1987, Thomas Sankara, the country's revolutionary leader, was assassinated in a coup orchestrated by Blaise Compaoré, his former ally. Compaoré went on to rule for 27 years, during which Burkina Faso's economy stagnated, its dependency on foreign powers deepened, and its people suffered. When Compaoré was finally removed from power, justice seemed within reach. But in 2016, Côte d'Ivoire's president, Alassane Ouattara, granted him Ivorian citizenship, shielding him from extradition. Although he was later sentenced to life in prison in absentia for his role in Sankara's murder, he continues to live freely in exile. Traoré refuses to let history repeat itself. Unlike Compaoré, Damiba will not be given the chance to escape accountability. His extradition is a direct challenge to the long-standing tradition of impunity that has allowed political figures to evade justice. This time, those responsible for destabilizing Burkina Faso will face the consequences of their actions. And now, the Burkinabe government is taking things a step further. The recent surge in treasonous activity has sparked a controversial debate. Should the death penalty be reinstated for crimes related to national security? Burkina Faso abolished capital punishment in 2018, but the military government is now reconsidering its stance, arguing that severe crimes require severe consequences. The decision is a reflection of the high stakes at play. Had the coup plot gone unnoticed, the consequences would have been devastating. The conspirators were not just planning a political maneuver, they were willing to use insurgent violence, attacks on civilians, and media manipulation to push their agenda forward. But now that the plot has been exposed, another question emerges. What will happen to those who were caught? The fate of Paul-Henri Damiba and his network of conspirators now rests in the hands of the Burkinabe justice system. And with the government determined to prevent any future attempts at destabilization, the outcome of this case could set a precedent for Burkina Faso's political future. The aftermath of the failed coup has created a turning point for Burkina Faso, one that even the conspirators never saw coming. Instead of toppling the government, their actions have only reinforced President Ibrahim Traoré's grip on power. What was meant to be a calculated move to unseat him has backfired spectacularly, exposing the very people who had been working in the shadows to destabilize the nation. Now, rather than dealing with a weakened administration, Burkina Faso is seeing the opposite. A leader emboldened by the failure of his enemies, determined to implement sweeping reforms that will leave no room for future betrayal. Those who once operated in secret, believing they were untouchable, are now scrambling to save themselves. For Paul-Henri Damiba, the consequences could not be more severe. Once a military ruler who seized power by force, he now finds himself accused of plotting to assassinate the very man who replaced him. His downfall is more than just a legal battle. It's a symbol of how quickly the tides of power can turn. Damiba's name, once associated with leadership, is now permanently tied to treachery and conspiracy. But there's another pressing concern. Will Togo protect him? In the past, African leaders accused of serious crimes have found refuge in neighboring countries. Blaise Compaoré, for example, was granted Ivorian citizenship after being accused of orchestrating the assassination of Thomas Sankara. That move shielded him from extradition, allowing him to escape justice for decades. Could history repeat itself with Damiba? If Burkina Faso secures his extradition, the outcome will send a clear message not just within the country, but across the continent. It would prove that no leader, no matter how powerful, can escape accountability forever. The justice system is preparing to build a case that will serve as a warning to anyone who dares to sell out the country for personal gain or foreign interests. But Damiba isn't the only one facing judgment. The 113 others who were arrested will also undergo extensive legal proceedings. The government has made it clear that evidence will be thoroughly reviewed, and those found guilty of sedition or treason will face the consequences. Burkina Faso's penal code, shaped by Law Number 025-2018/AN, outlines severe punishments for crimes that threaten national security. While the law does not explicitly use the term sedition, it clearly defines offences such as treason, espionage, and attempts to overthrow the government. Historically, these crimes have led to long prison sentences, but now, something even more controversial is being discussed: the death penalty. which was abolished in 2018, is being reconsidered. Given the scale of this conspiracy and its potential consequences, some within the government believe that Burkina Faso needs stronger deterrence against future betrayals. The debate is no longer just about punishing the guilty, it's about making an example of them. Because the real question remains, are there more traitors still lurking in the system? And if so, what kind of message should be sent to ensure that no one dares to follow in their footsteps? Burkina Faso is facing a moment of reckoning. With the recent coup plot exposed and over 100 conspirators in custody, the government is now grappling with one of the biggest questions in its history. How should those who betrayed the country be punished? For years, Burkina Faso has taken a firm stance against the death penalty, officially removing it from its legal system in 2018. But recent events have reignited the debate. Some argue that crimes as serious as plotting to overthrow the government and working with foreign powers to destabilize the nation demand the harshest possible consequences. Others believe justice should be served through long-term imprisonment, allowing the legal system to set an example without resorting to executions. At the heart of this debate is President Ibrahim Traoré. He has already made it clear that he will not tolerate internal threats that compromise Burkina Faso's stability. Many believe he is prepared to bring back capital punishment, using it as a deterrent against those who think they can conspire against the nation and get away with it. The 113 individuals arrested in connection with the plot, including former officials, military officers, and intelligence operatives, are now awaiting their fate. Each of them played a role in a conspiracy that could have led to national chaos. Should their punishment be severe enough to send a message? Or should Burkina Faso handle this differently, ensuring justice is served without crossing a moral line? And here's the bigger issue. If this plot was so widespread, could there be others still operating in secret,